as those continue. But some of the strongest winds right here now impacting Estelle, as I'd mentioned. It looked like it would probably stay more on the west bank, but certainly could have some of the strongest or stronger winds right along the metro area. In fact, we can take a look. I'm going to have to search for it here for a second and find kind of the metro area winds, and we can get a rough idea maybe of what the winds are doing in the metro area right now. Nothing outrageous. A lot of these are kind of home stations, so these would be unchecked by the National Weather Service. But check out MSY, sustained at 26 miles an hour and gusting to almost 60 miles an hour. That, if nothing else, is going to take some tree limbs down and produce maybe some minor damage. Hopefully not anything widespread, but certainly some minor damage. You can kind of see some of the winds here changing. They're certainly stronger than just 3 miles an hour with stronger gusts at 10. That's why I tend not to like some of these graphics with these home weather stations. While they do have their place, sometimes, well, obviously the data is not checked by the National Weather Service, and they're just not nearly as reliable as our National Weather Service stations are. Kind of updating us as to what is happening at the moment, why we cut into programming here, now going on 11:30. We did have in the river parishes a couple of tornado warnings. At one time around the Convent area, there appeared to be some debris in the air. There are also reports of some damage around the Convent to Lutcher area. That will be assessed by the National Weather Service office tomorrow. We also had some reports of power outages in those same areas. As far as the storms moving into the metro area now, we're able to hear some of the rainfall on our rooftop in the quarter, so we're getting in on some of the heaviest of the rainfall. Looks like maybe some power flashes here at times. That is certainly possible at your homes. Hopefully nothing that is widespread. Our director, Madeline, I don't know if we can pull up whenever you can another look at the outage map just to see if we have any further outages. But North Shore, you're getting in on the thick of it right now, as well as Metro New Orleans with some strong straight line winds. As we just saw at the airport, gusting up to almost 60 miles an hour, sustained winds of near 30. So these are not as strong as they had been. When these were approaching the river parishes, the sustained winds were about 70. Those seem to have come down a bit, but still gusts at 60 will do some minor damage with the tends to be the weaker tree limbs, but that can then equate to power lines and sometimes power outages. We're getting in on the worst of it right now. These storms are moving very, very quickly, kind of on the south or western end of this. We may be having to watch some of these storms that are kind of on the tail end of this later into the night, but doesn't look like any of that really poses much of a severe risk per se. The real severe risk is this leading edge, which is pushing through the metro area at this time. Let me see, we're getting some more additional storm reports. Some streets, no specific, but some streets flooded in Livingston Parish around Walker, so a little bit more north of our, a little northwest of our viewing area. I was waiting to see if maybe we had any report from some of the EOs in the affected parishes and the river parishes to maybe they were reporting some damage, and hopefully nothing, hopefully just something very minor as with regards to any damage. Multiple reports of trees and power poles down around the Convent area. That was from the earlier, what had been a confirmed tornado per the Weather Service based upon the fact that they were able to detect debris in the air from that potential tornado. We are, as the line continues moving to the east, we're seeing more of our western parishes removed from the severe thunderstorm warnings. That will continue through the metro area to the North Shore and until midnight. But really, as with regards to the all clear for folks that may be waiting for me to say, okay, now you can go to bed, a lot of our river parishes, at least St. John and St. James, really just about in the clear from any risk of severe weather. Not to say you won't hear some rain, maybe even see a few lightning strikes, but the severe risk is gone. It is starting to wind down even for St. Charles Parish on the North Shore. Excuse me. On the North Shore, just about the all clear for Tangipahoa Parish and really even Washington Parish, kind of the all clear. The worst of it is going to stay in St. Tammany, so Pearl River County probably won't get much of the worst of the winds nor the heaviest of the rainfall. That's going to be more for Hancock moving toward Harrison County, and the same for the South Shore. These are ongoing, as I'd mentioned, almost the all clear for St. Charles Parish. Getting in on the strong winds in Jean Lafitte, so still ongoing for Jefferson, and that will continue to be a threat for then further downstream into Plaquemines Parish and St. Bernard Parish here shortly, actually starting to already move into parts of the Chalmette area with those strongest winds, now passing across the French Quarter and just down the street, down the Rampart to St. Claude, you're into St. Bernard Parish, so we're already moving in there very, very quickly. These storms, I tell you what, it's a humbling experience when you're forecasting these complexes of storms. The models sometimes do a decent job, and other times they are out to lunch, as one of my professors used to say. These complexes are very tricky to forecast and almost impossible to forecast the exact structure of how they will look. And something else, most of the models said these wouldn't even be arriving until around midnight through 2 a.m. And here we are before midnight, and more and more of our parishes are being removed from the threat level as the storms continue pushing off to the east. Not to say we are completely done with a tornado risk, but notice how, as we watched this over the past hour, what was a fairly well-defined bow echo, you almost see the northern end of that line kind of catching up with what had been that bowing signature. So it looks like that bowing feature is much, much weaker and weakening as it continues moving toward the east. So something positive there. If you don't really have that well-defined bow any longer, you're not as likely to get the, okay, that is called the Weather Emergency Alert or Wireless Emergency Alert, as a lot of your phones just went off. Wow. Weather Service is saying the MSY just reported a wind gust of 84 miles an hour within those storms. It's not happening right now, but a wind gust of 84 miles an hour just reported at MSY. So I think because of that is the reason why the Weather Service went ahead and issued the wireless emergency alert system, why a lot of your phones probably just went off. If you're joining me on, I'm hoping we're on social media right now. I don't know if Madeline, if you can check if we're on social media right now, and certainly if you're joining us on air right now. A lot of folks in the metro area may, if you had been able to fall asleep with the rain, you might have just gotten woken up because of your phones going off. We did have a wind gust just reported. Okay, thank you. We are on social media. Just wanted to make sure, because I know a lot of folks just go to their phones right away to make sure we're getting the information out across all platforms. We just had a wind gust of 84 miles an hour at Kenner, and that may be what prompted the issuing of we call it the WEA, the WEA, the Wireless Emergency Alert System. That only is in regards to possibly devastating thunderstorms and winds gusting up to 84 miles an hour. Now you're in excess of a Category 1 hurricane wind gusts. That is cause for alarm and the possibility of maybe some widespread damage across really what is all of the metro area down toward almost cutoff with some of the strongest winds, and that is now moving through the metro area. Trying to give some folks a little bit of a breather here, kind of signaling the all clear. Certainly for Tangipahoa Parish, you're in the all clear, as well as you are in Washington Parish. Our river parishes just about entirely out of the real threat. Certainly St. James and St. John. You've still got some thunderstorms around Laplace, but not anything severe. It's going to be the leading edge and kind of right within the line where you're going to find some of the strongest of the winds. And yes, that alert went out because of the wind gust of 84 miles an hour. That was why the WEA was issued, as that is very much a possibility with these storms continuing through the metro area. I was showing you those metro area winds, which I'm not a big fan of because so many of them are just kind of home stations. Look at this, 60 mile an hour sustained at Kenner and gusting to 84 miles an hour. That is unbelievable. If that would be maintained, we could see similar winds sustain and gusting throughout the rest of the metro area over the course of the next, say, 15 to 20 minutes or so. Line is moving very quickly, but some strong winds, and that was something we were really trying to reiterate, was the winds were going to be the greatest threat from these storms as they continue throughout the night tonight and now almost into the early morning hours of Friday. Going back to our radar, just to give you an idea of where some of those strongest winds could be right now. We are looking at the potential really across the entirety of the metro area, from Metro New Orleans down toward even past Jean Lafitte with some strong winds. So all of those areas in northern Plaquemines, Belle Chasse already getting in on some of the strongest of the winds throughout the Metro New Orleans area, with that wind having gusted up to 84 miles an hour at Kenner. I would venture to say we are going to see and hear about some damage there shortly. As we start to get more folks kind of heading out. This is not the time to be heading out. This is not the time to try and find out what happened. You still underneath the primary threat of the strongest winds and the heaviest rainfall. A lot of lightning within these storms, and that's not something you want to be investigating just yet. Give this a little bit more time before folks start heading out and trying to assess any potential property damage. Just give this not much longer, just another few minutes, and then you'll be able to go out and do that. But something that obviously will have to be assessed as we get into the early morning hours of Friday, with winds gusting at 84 miles an hour. No official storm reports coming in just yet. We're getting the official report in from the Weather Service confirming that wind of 84 miles an hour, but otherwise no damage to report just yet, and hopefully nothing else to report. And our director, Madeline, if you can kind of relay into the newsroom if they are getting any information on the scanners of any damage over the metro area, and just something else I could pass along would be very helpful. I appreciate it. Just so we know exactly what is happening right now. We've got the strong winds. We can take a look at our tower camera looking from the West Bank out toward the city. You know, the lightning is intense. Our camera is shaking. We're looking toward downtown. Really cannot see it with reduced visibility thanks to all of the heavy rainfall out at the moment. This will continue with reduced visibility. Hopefully, you know, we don't normally like these events to roll in during the early morning hours, kind of the 10 to midnight. Still a lot of folks are awake. Most folks are off of the roads, but kind of a time when maybe a lot of folks haven't drifted off to bed just yet. If there was an optimal time for these type of storms, it's kind of around now. Folks are already back at home. Most shifts are over. You're inside, but you're not in the deep sleep where you have to be awoken by your phone going off as these storms are rumbling through right now. And sometimes for many of us, myself, it's hard to sleep when it's pretty active weather like this, with the lightning and the intense rain and winds ongoing throughout the area. Zoom. Okay, I appreciate it, Madeline. Madeline, our director, going to find out if there's any information coming into our newsroom via our police, fire, emergency scanners to see if there's any reports of damage. I'm not getting any reports of damage thus far into the Weather Service office. Most of our emergency management officials within the region, Mississippi and all of South Louisiana, are also in these same chats with the National Weather Service office. So usually as soon as information comes into them, we will see that in real time. And hopefully we see nothing, but thus far nothing official coming in. We've got the strong winds that are continuing over the Metro New Orleans area and down toward the lower parts of our parishes, and Lafourche toward Cutoff. Jean Lafitte getting in on some of the strongest of the winds now. Belle Chasse, you're already in it. We'll continue moving deeper into St. Bernard. Already through St. Bernard and now into New Orleans East. You can almost see kind of a little broad little spin here associated with the cell, just indicating kind of a broad rotation, indicating this is still a very powerful thunderstorm line that is moving through, with the strongest of it on the south shore. Rainfall rates have been fairly high. Official rainfall totals, let's take a look at that right now to see what the totals are thus far. Now those are going to reset at midnight. But thus far, well, you know, officially we've only picked up, at least according to our data here, 11/100ths of an inch at Kenner. Hopefully that is all we ended up picking up. But again, these are moving fairly quickly, so that is possible. I'd venture to say we're going to see more than that, though, as we kind of assess the climate data for the airport. But as far as the winds go, that will be the ongoing threat as we continue through the next, say, half hour, 45 minutes or so. Give this some time to continue moving to the east. Thankfully, though, with regards to the Mississippi coast, as these storms on the North Shore are moving your way, they're not as strong from St. Tammany. So it will be eventually moving into Hancock and then Harrison County, or excuse me, are not nearly as strong as the storms that we have had on the South Shore. So our South Shore storms are actually going to stay south of the Mississippi Sound. So the strongest of the winds eventually will just move out over the Gulf waters. Not too much longer before most of our populated areas out of the threat of those strongest winds. But I know our lights are flickering here, and the winds continue to howl. And with the lightning, I would venture to say we'll start to see some more power outages across more of southeast Louisiana. Let's see. We can kind of get an idea of some power outages in the New Orleans area. I'm going to go to our outage map here to see where we may be starting to see some potential power outages. Okay, thank you, Madeline. Nothing on the scanner. We do have the map. I'm looking at the map as well. It does look like there are portions of Jefferson Parish. I don't know if you have the map available right away. I'm just going to kind of look at what I'm seeing. This is just for the South Shore right now. We've got large areas along the lakefront in Kenner, a good portion of Kenner all along the river right to River Ridge. Actually selfishly looking at my home to see if my house in River Ridge is out. It looks like it's maybe out there too. Okay, so you see a number of areas downriver. So, you know, going towards Jean Lafitte, you've got the power outages there. Not thankfully widespread across the city. You do find kind of pockets, and hopefully those pockets may be just some of the substations that had some damage, and they can get the power on a little bit faster. Now, obviously, Entergy crews will need time for these winds to abate. I believe they need to be less than 30 miles an hour. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that is what the what Entergy crews customly do. It has to be less than 30 miles an hour to send the lineman out to repair. It could be less than that. I don't honestly remember exactly what that is. But kind of zooming around, it looks like you know, more of the areas downriver on English Turn. On the West Bank, looks like Algiers is in green. Parts of downtown, maybe a little area, maybe kind of around the Black Pearl out. Other areas of the West Bank, you're starting to see some power outages there. Much of Uptown looks like you're okay. Doesn't mean it won't go out later, but it looks like you're okay. And then on the other side of the 17th Street Canal, there are some pockets of Metairie. River Ridge and Harahan may be out, as well as some areas in Metairie along I-10. Looks like we're starting to get a few areas. This might be Lafreniere Park, so some areas right around where my parents are may be out of power there as well. So we are starting to get some power outages being reported, a number of homes and neighborhoods out. This looks like, thankfully, kind of on the wide scale, not a widespread issue as of right now, and hopefully that won't be the case. Just comparing what the winds have been doing on either side of the lake, the wind gust at Mandeville measured at 52 miles an hour compared to that 84 mile an hour wind gust we had at MSY. So the winds on the South Shore are far stronger than what we have north of the lake. So might try and take a look at CLECO maps here a little bit later on. Probably not the widespread power outages on the North Shore as we're starting to see south of the lake. And again, that's just how things stand right now. Sometimes even after the fact, you start seeing more of those power outages. And hopefully this is not going to be a widespread issue. As mentioned before, we're starting to see kind of the all clear for, I'd say, almost all of our river parishes now. We're getting that all clear. Not to say you won't still hear some rumbles of thunder and maybe some heavy rainfall at times, but it's the leading edge of these storms and kind of within the wide line of storms where you're getting the strongest of those winds. It has been weakening. That bow echo has almost seemed to, at least the northern end of it's kind of caught up, and you've seen that bow echo almost kind of expand out as though the wind field is beginning to expand out, not necessarily strengthening, but the wind field itself is starting to weaken as well. And that's certainly a good sign as we continue through the late night hours and going into the early morning hours of our Friday. As mentioned before, we're not going to be done with the rainfall. We will get a break here for the better part of the day. Our high resolution model, we'll take a look at it. Again, it doesn't do a great job of where these storms are, but to maybe get a rough idea as we continue through the night tonight and going into early Friday morning, we will get a break. Maybe a few pop-up showers here and there, but nothing substantial. We really don't get into more rain until late in the afternoon, evening. And at least what the models have been showing thus far, not nearly as substantial as the storms we're dealing with right now. So this will be kind of round 2 of storms later into the maybe late afternoon and into the evening. This will be kind of coming out of the southwest, so moving southwest to northeast. There will be a higher risk of some flooding on the North Shore, again in areas that are already fairly saturated, although at this point now both sides of the lake are pretty well saturated. But it looks to be maybe more of a flooding risk from the North Shore on Friday into Mississippi and Alabama, and then I don't believe this model will go, the high res won't go all the way into Saturday. Well, we'll get into Saturday morning here. We'll have kind of another round of rainfall as we get the Saturday started as well. So not done with the severe weather, unfortunately. This will continue to be an issue for tomorrow, not all day, as well as on Saturday morning. And again, not all day. We will get some breaks. And then thankfully, by about Saturday afternoon into the evening, most of the storms winding down. We should actually see some clearing of the skies. And then by Sunday, more sunshine. And you'll be kind of hoping for the clouds as temperatures will be near 90 and at points midweek feeling more like 100 degrees, just a sign of what is to come as we continue through our May, and very active May at that. Storms ongoing on the North Shore, though winds have not been nearly as strong. We have seen a wind gust in Mandeville of about 52 miles an hour. And then for, again, New Orleans, the airport reporting a wind gust of 84 miles an hour. And you know what was kind of interesting is that even with that wind gust at the airport, the power outages in Kenner were not as extensive as I thought they might be. You did have some along the lakefront in Kenner, and then really from all of the Rivertown, riverfront of Kenner into River Ridge, you do have power outages along the river there, and then more sporadic throughout parts of the city and into Metairie. Okay, our own Sharice Gibson is sending us a message saying that there are some power outages kind of sporadic in the Uptown area. Near the Metairie Walmart, there is a power outage. Actually, our former news director, Keith Esperos, texted me and said power was out, up, down, came back on, so a short outage. And hopefully some of those maps necessarily aren't up to the minute. Hopefully some of the outages that we've seen, yeah, we can pull that up, Madeline, thank you. Hopefully some of the outages that we are starting to see are more sporadic in nature. Doug Mouton in Mandeville is telling me that he's watching us on the app because the Mouton power is out. So he is in Mandeville, not far from the lakefront, and so we do have some reports of power outages in the Mandeville area as well. We can take a look at some of those power outages. Maybe let's, I don't know if we have any in Tangi, but we can go into more, or do we have any showing up in the like Jefferson area, Orleans Parish, who we can just kind of take a quick look at? Let's see. So what is that, 3,000 or so customers out? That's manageable for Jefferson, considering those winds having been reported at 84 miles an hour. Devin Bartolotta lives in Metairie, not far from the lake. She says the power has been flickering, but at least as far as she is concerned at her house, power, but she's also describing the winds reminiscent of a hurricane. I'm sure if folks were trying to go to bed at around 10 o'clock over the last 30, 45 minutes, you were quickly woken up, if not by the thunder, by the incredibly strong and strong sustained winds at that. Again, that gust at Kenner was 84 miles an hour, but the sustained wind at Kenner was 60 miles an hour. That is incredible. That was stronger than that of a weak tropical storm. That was the sustained wind. We just had a not as strong, but a 71 knot wind, that's not in miles per hour, knots at the Lakefront Airport. So they are still rocking in Metro New Orleans with these winds. And as a lot of folks are texting me and letting me know, it sounds more like a hurricane. We're kind of well protected in our studios at WWL. Our walls are like 3 feet thick, so it's hard to even hear what's going on outside. But based on what everyone else is saying with the winds, that they have been very intense. Thankfully, this entire complex is moving very quickly, so it won't be much longer to where you more have just the light, moderate, maybe pockets of some heavier rainfall. Even the thunderstorms you see kind of on the little tail of this are not nearly as intense around the Raceland, Houma, Thibodaux, out toward Morgan City. This is kind of the little tail end of these storms. Not nearly as powerful. And as those, again, leading edge of the storms continue moving to the east, they will be weakening. Okay, Lily Cummings, I tell you what, our team is on the ball as always. Lily Cummings is mentioning power out in Metairie on Transcontinental between West Napoleon and Metairie. Our general manager, Todd Smith, power out in English Turn. We were showing you that on the outage map, that there were parts of the West Bank that were reporting those power outages. The River Ridge power is out, Magnolia Creek, so a lot of the creeks on Dickory, and Dock on Dickory are out, but I'm sure more widespread across River Ridge, as we did see that from the outage map as well. So we are getting a lot of our reporters, meteorologists, and upper management letting me know where the power outages are occurring. Again, not surprised with these strong winds moving through. Hopefully in the next couple of hours, as the winds abate, we'll be able to see the Entergy CLECO crews being able to go out and start assessing the damage. And hopefully it's not a widespread issue, that it's more of just some of the substations, maybe individual transformers that power numerous homes. Sometimes you'll get one transformer that'll power kind of a group of homes in a certain neighborhood, and hopefully it's just more of those that can be isolated very quickly and responded to through the overnight and early morning hours going into early on Friday. Because again, we will see another round tomorrow and then again on Saturday. Doesn't look like it's going to be as robust as the storms were this evening, but certainly another severe threat, as well as a threat for more of those strong winds. Looks like things are starting to settle down a bit in western St. Tammany Parish, so from Folsom to Covington, Mandeville, Madisonville, Beatico, you're kind of getting into that close to the all clear for you, some Sun, Tallahassee, Pearl River, Slidell, not quite to you just yet with regards to an all clear. Again, a lot of those folks in the all clear, maybe without power right now, but at least the conditions are improving. Much of Metro New Orleans now is just about in the clear. The worst of those storms now out over more of the lakefront, kind of past Pontchartrain Beach toward Little Woods, Michoud to Chalmette, and then on the West Bank, Tarrytown to Estelle, Belle Chase, then toward English Turn, and farther south, Crown Point to Carlisle, still in some of those strongest of the winds. And that is kind of then you're getting into that little tail of the storms that'll continue down toward our lower bayou and then coastal parishes as we go later into the night, or maybe earlier in the morning. Meteorologist Alexa Trishler said in one of the apartment complexes in a very loud bang, almost like a line and possibly transformer being hit right nearby. So that usually would be kind of an issue with maybe the transformers. New severe thunderstorm warning being issued. This is for now. And there goes our weather, our wireless emergency alert system on a lot of phones. Does include parts of Metro New Orleans, but this is now as the line pushes farther south. So this is for lower Jefferson. Not as much Lafourche, a little piece of Lafourche and cut off to Galliano, but more so lower Jefferson into lower Plaquemines, and then you're getting into the Biloxi Marsh of St. Bernard. This is where we now have a new severe thunderstorm warning, as we've got some of the strongest winds moving toward now more of our coastal parishes and away from Metro New Orleans. So Metro New Orleans starting to see that settling down of the weather. Still some intense rainfall. I can hear it on our rooftop here, but it is settling down a bit. Now the strongest of those winds, which as we have seen at times gusting up to probably now more like in the line of 70 or near 70 miles an hour, the wind gust at let's see, we're getting some, not specific, but we're getting street flood reports in, let's see, in Covington. I'm just trying to see if it was anything specific, just reports of streets and roads flooded in the Covington area via the National Weather Service office. I was hoping maybe it would give me a more specific, let's see, more specific, but it is not. That wind gust that we had out at the Lakefront Airport was 81, almost 80, well, about 82 miles an hour. And then of course the one out at MSY was 84 miles an hour. Winds do tend to be a little bit stronger out at the lakefront because it sticks out into the lake, so you don't have the friction with the water sitting out over the lake, so the winds tend to be a little bit stronger. But still, you've had those maintained of 84 miles an hour to now the 81 mile an hour wind gust as these storms have continued along through the metro area. I would venture to say, thankfully, nothing official into the Weather Service chat group, and we did not have any reports into our newsroom thus far of any major damage. But with the power outages happening, there obviously is some type of damage that is occurring across Metro New Orleans, and hopefully it is nothing substantial. I would feel as though if it was more substantial, we would have started to get some reports in by now, but thankfully not hearing that just yet. That doesn't mean it isn't. I'm just reporting it as it is coming into my cell phone and everywhere else. I'm getting some messages via Facebook. And again, these eyewitness accounts are key to being able to pass that along to the rest of our population. Power outages in Marrero, around Barataria and Ames. A friend of mine is reporting kind of all clear, still windy, but she actually lives in Mons and saying we're in the clear now, although the winds are still pretty gusty. So again, we're starting to see some more of those in the all clear range through the river parishes. Still, you know, bayou parishes, maybe wait for these thunderstorms to subside a bit. These are not severe, but you still got some heavy rainfall, gusty winds. The strongest of the winds, though, are this leading edge, now moving into Carlisle, already through Jean Lafitte. You're probably in the thick of it at Belchase, Jean Lafitte, not quite to Port Sulphur just yet. It looks like these may, I don't know, might still affect Cutoff right now and may still affect Galliano. Not sure what the strength of the winds are just to the north, actually right over Chauvin at this time, but certainly strong winds and potentially damaging winds, even if it's not necessarily still at a gust of 80 miles an hour, but gusting up to 70 miles an hour will still do some substantial damage and more widespread damage. We are starting to see more of St. Tammany Parish kind of in the clear. Abita Springs now kind of clearing out. Mandeville now clearing out. We got kind of more of a light, moderate rainfall there at the moment. Still may hear of a few lightning strikes at times. The Colin Arnold with the city is saying at the NOFD Academy in Michoud had a 71 mile per hour wind gust, I would imagine is what he is relaying to the Weather Service office. He's saying the 71 mile an hour wind gust, I would say, at the NOFD Academy in Michoud. So as I've said, though the winds settled from what they had been, they were still particularly strong across much of the South Shore as we've continued really since about 11 o'clock. So this has now been ongoing for an hour. We did cut into programming just around 11 with a tornado warning that was in place for around the Lutcher Convent area. Yes. Okay, it sounds like our generator is going in and out at the moment, meaning we are seeing some power fluctuations here in the French Quarter. So I would venture to say maybe we do have some power outages here in the French Quarter. Our camera, unfortunately, is on the west bank looking back toward the city. You know, thankfully, we don't see any large areas in black right now. You still see plenty of lights on from the west bank looking back across the river toward the CBD. We don't see any kind of widespread outages, and hopefully that continues to be the case through the night tonight. We have a new severe thunderstorm warning that will be for Hancock, Harrison, Pearl River, St. Tammany, more for the Slidell area, and for Orleans, for kind of New Orleans east toward then Venetian Isles, due to the threat of the strong winds and potential hail. May start to see some power outages there as these storms continue out toward the east. But again, what we're at least seeing on a wide scale is not widespread power outages. They seem to be more smaller individual neighborhoods or even little small subdivisions, and not entire incorporated little towns, Harahan, River Ridge, Jefferson, like that. Thankfully, it looks like it is a little bit more isolated, although a lot of my coworkers are saying that power out is you know, here and there and elsewhere. And just kind of following my text and Facebook messages. And again, I appreciate all that information coming in, because then I can then relay that to our audience that may be watching us on air, or if you did lose power, watching us on our app or on social media, just so we can get the information out to you. Going back to radar and looking at that kind of new severe thunderstorm warning, this is the one we were talking about that kind of includes just, I mean, barely Orleans Parish and eastern St. Tammany. This is more for the storms that are getting ready to move now as we've gotten some of those stronger winds, maybe starting to move toward more western and southern Hancock County, with the storms coming in from the lake and down south toward the city. Those are almost making a little bit of a northeasterly or northeasterly motion that would then put them toward more of our southern Mississippi counties, especially into Hancock. I don't think quite as much into Pearl River, and you'll notice the Warren area just includes kind of that southern little panhandle of probably never described Pearl River as having a panhandle, but that little piece of the county where Picayune is, you are under that warning. Not for the rest of Pearl River County as you go up towards, say, Poplarville. It's just around the Picayune area as of right now. Oh, and an email from a viewer saying that Lake Ramsey in Covington is out of power right now. And so, as I've said, I really appreciate it when any of our viewers and audience relay that information to me, because then I can relay that to our audience, and hopefully we have some officials watching, and so they're getting a good estimate, and they can start taking a tally of where these outages are occurring. So I really appreciate any information you can safely pass along. I don't need to know about debris and damage while we still have the ongoing storms. That can wait a little while, but certainly power outages are very helpful to pass along at first. And as things start to settle down, then you can kind of poke your head out and see if, as we kind of get the all clear from these storms. And I would say much of the metro area, certainly Jefferson Parish, you'll find a few pockets of some moderate, maybe a little bit of briefly heavy rainfall, a few lightning strikes, but the worst of the storms for, I'd say, metro New Orleans and in the northern Jefferson Parish, really both sides of JP, East and West Bank, you're kind of in the clear, in the all clear now, if you wanted to just go step out and kind of assess any potential damage to your home or property. Not New Orleans East just yet, toward Little Woods, Lake Catherine, Venetian Isles, not quite there just yet. We're starting to see some improvement in Chalmette. The rest of St. Bernard just kind of hold off a little while longer. Same in Plaquemine. Still some fairly heavy rainfall around Belchase, though the winds have likely subsided. Just again, give yourself a little bit more time. And as far as JP goes, I'd say from Estelle south, just kind of hold off a little while longer before you try and go out and start taking a look at any potential damage. Just give this another, say, 15 minutes or so, and then we'll start to kind of sound the all clear for those areas as the storms themselves continue moving along or toward the east. We still have this little tail of storms, but it doesn't look like anything other than maybe some heavier rainfall and lightning. Really nothing severe in those at this time. If you see me looking at my watch or checking other things, I am just looking at information either through text, email, Facebook messages and whatnot. High sustained winds from a viewer above I-12 in Covington. Flickering power and some fence damage. Just some, rough damage reports that we're getting in from other areas, and these are kind of the usual suspects of damage, fences, weak tree limbs. Trees sometimes can be easily uprooted depending on the soil moisture and how weak the tree is, how large the root system is. So far, thankfully, and hopefully that does not change, so far it seems to be more of the usual suspect types of damage reports that we're getting, as well as the kind of usual suspects for our flooding reports. Nothing that seems to be crazy thus far. Kind of waiting to see. Bayou Bienvenue at the vertical lift gate. This is in St. Bernard. They had a wind gust of 72 miles an hour. So you had the winds gusting at the airport at 84, gusting further downstream at Lakefront Airport at about 81. And as it continued into St. Bernard Parish, they've been decreasing but still strong, gusting up to 72 miles an hour. Looking at kind of an update from the Weather Service, the area that we're watching is kind of moving through coastal Mississippi. That will impact more of the Mississippi counties through the early morning hours of Friday, with the 60 to 70 mile an hour winds as the main threat. That's kind of what they're describing as Area 1. This is Area 2 that will probably be an issue for maybe the next 30 minutes or so. This is where we're getting more of those 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts. Thankfully, these are moving toward some of the coastal areas and then offshore shortly. So it won't be too much longer that we'll have to deal with those strong winds. Getting reports from one of our news managers, more than 16,000 without power in JP. So that number has gone up since our last report from the power outages, so we're starting to see a little bit more. We're also getting a report of, let's see, power outages in the Sherwood Forest subdivision in New Orleans East. I appreciate that. That's from folks at WWL Radio. And then, as I said, the 16,000 without power in JP. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you, Madeline. Yeah, we can look at our outage map again just to get a rough idea of maybe some of the new power outages. Excuse me, I'm going to walk off camera so I can take a closer look. Looks like all around the Lakefront Airport, you've got them out toward Michoud. A lot of New Orleans East, although we just heard from the Sherwood Forest subdivision, does have some power outages. Further into the city on the west side of the Industrial Canal, doesn't look too bad. Maybe more in JP than we really have in Orleans Parish. And really on both sides of the rivers. You go downriver towards Jean Lafitte, you've got those power outages. Can we zoom into some of the ones in on the East Bank in Jefferson Parish, Madeline? Looks like Avondale. Here's the Riverbend area. You've got some on Britannia, a few pockets of power outages. Looks like Harahan, we've got some power outages there. River Ridge, all along the river into Kenner. More of Kenner, more of those neighborhoods starting to show up around the airport. This is certainly different than what we were showing you earlier. We are getting more power outage reports now from Entergy in Kenner and then further east into Metairie. Kind of looks like a lot right along the I-10 corridor. You've got a number of neighborhoods there of power outages. Trying to see some of these streets. So around the Clearview area, looks like maybe the Clearview, kind of the overpass there by West Napoleon. Looks like a lot of West Napoleon is out. Around the Willowdale area, power outages there on the north and south side of I-10. You've also got some reports of outages around Lafreniere Park, as I had mentioned earlier. So we are getting more reports of power outages now in JP. And unfortunately, that was certainly a possibility. I was trying find that shred of hope that maybe we wouldn't see any more power outages, but usually that is the case. You'll get kind of those initial power outages with those initial storms or winds moving in, and then even after the fact, you start to see more and more power going out. And sometimes that is deliberate. Entergy will start kind of rerouting to start getting things working again. We've not had reports yet of Entergy actually out and about just yet, but hopefully that will be soon, and hopefully it won't be kind of a prolong. I'm being very hopeful. I'm just like you. I know it's not going to be until tomorrow at some point. I'm just trying to be optimistic for you folks, but I know it just takes some time to get all that power back on. We've got the bulk of those storms now really moving away from the metro area, but our bayou and coastal communities still under the gun for some of these strongest winds, so they will likely start seeing more power outages down to Port Sulphur and more Plaquemines Parish, lower Lafourche, but more so lower Jefferson Parish. Not quite gotten into the worst of it yet in Grand Isle. That is still on your doorstep as we continue through now the early Friday morning hours. As far as our Mississippi coast is concerned, again, the winds there were anticipated to be between 60 to 70 miles per hour at the highest into Hancock, Pearl River County, and then maybe spreading further into Harrison, maybe continuing on into Jackson County. And then that was kind of area 1. Area 2 are the storms that are moving south toward the Biloxi Marsh and then lower Jefferson and Plaquemines Parish. That is where we have seen the 70 to even 80 mile per hour wind gusts. That may be an ongoing issue for the next half hour or so. Hopefully before 1 a.m. most of those storms are already winding down, as will the storms along the Mississippi coast kind of be winding down as well. CLECO reporting 10,613 customers without power in St. Tammany. So we've got, okay, Oxnard main campus, we're just getting reports in, so that is in Jefferson. So Oxnard main campus actually does not have power, and they are awaiting the generators to kick on. It sometimes a bad sign if the hospitals aren't coming right back online, but they all have backup generators. It just sounds like maybe they're having a little bit of an issue getting them online, or maybe there's a little bit of a delay. I don't know, but I'm just relaying the information as it is coming in, kind of the raw information as it is coming in. We're getting reports of Oxnard main campus on Jefferson Highway at the river without power right now, but hopefully they will be getting power there shortly. They're kind of awaiting their generators to turn on. Looking to see if we're getting any new information. I just heard my little email chime to see what new data is coming in. And again, we're just getting, you know, again, I appreciate all the information that we're getting in from our viewers and staff here. We got staff that live basically all over both sides of the river, Homa, North Shore, we're everywhere, and they're all reporting into me exactly what has been happening in the area. As far as the all clear goes, we can maybe remove just about all of St. Tammany Parish, maybe the exception of Pearl River and Slidell, and down toward kind of the Eden Isles area. Maybe just give it another few minutes before we can give you the all clear there. Again, as I'd mentioned, Metro New Orleans pretty much in the all clear. May still have some pockets of some heavier rainfall, but the severe threat is done for you now. Even the rain that we have, and fairly intense rain at Jean Lafitte, this is no longer a severe risk, so things are and will continue to settle down there. Toward Homa, finally seeing some drying out, as well as up toward Thibodaux. So our bayou parish is beginning to see further improvement, and further improvement still in the river parishes, and we're starting to see more of a break in even that light rainfall. So improving conditions everywhere, with the exception of the Mississippi coast and down to our coastal parishes. We still have some issues there, and that will be, again, not much longer, and hopefully a lot of this will be wrapping up before the 1 a.m. time frame. Apologize, I needed a sip of water. I've got a question from one of my coworkers. We've got some storms that are kind of around the Morgan City area south of Baton Rouge. We'll kind of zoom out and show you some of those. At the moment, these do not appear to be severe. You've got a lot of lightning with it, maybe some flooding issues. We'll be watching those through the night. This has been kind of that, and the HRRR model had done a decent job of indicating kind of a broken up quasi line of storms that may still be ongoing, and these may be additional storms we have to watch. At the moment, doesn't look like anything severe, but obviously in now ground that is saturated, any of these additional heavier downpours could lead to further flooding concerns as we go into the early morning hours of our Friday, something that will be watched closely throughout the course of the night tonight. We're just getting some questions into the Weather Service office about the ongoing tornado watch that is still in effect until 3 a.m. I would venture to say we would start to see more of that watch expire. Actually, we can go to our all radars, and this is a look at all the radars from Lake Charles, Houston. You know, you do have kind of this little tail of some thunderstorms. We'll see if that's able to kind of continue on through the night. Certainly a lot of the atmosphere is spent from the storms we've just had and still have moving through. So we'll see if some of these storms are able to maintain themselves. It looks like they may be generally less than severe limits. Certainly a lot of lightning and heavy rainfall, but hopefully as those continue through the night, they really don't pose much of a widespread issue. That doesn't appear to be the case, but hopefully not a severe risk. That doesn't look to be the case from some of those additional thunderstorms that we may still see later on into the early morning hours of our Friday. Watching the storms themselves, looks like for much of St. Bernard, the strongest of the winds now are already past Alluvial City, Shell Beach, Hopedale. So the strongest of the winds are really now in the eastern Biloxi Marsh. So I think improving conditions dramatically in much of St. Bernard, as well as northern Plaquemines Parish. You still have the heavy rain from Carlisle up toward Belle Chase, but the strongest of the winds are now probably well removed from you. Still some gust at times. I'm not saying that it's not still kind of rough out there, but certainly the strongest and the threats of the 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts have now left that area. Still heavy at Jean Lafitte, but again, the severe threats from the strongest of the winds are now well down to your south and moving further south, not quite to Grand Isle just yet. And in fact, you'll notice that Grand Isle does not find themselves under the severe thunderstorm warning that kind of stops to your north. So we'll see if those storms are able to kind of maintain themselves as they push farther south and east. But as of right now, you are not in from Leeville, in fact, down toward Port Fourchon and then over into Grand Isle. You are not under the severe thunderstorm watch. Main threat, again, being those 70 to 80 mile per hour winds within these storms, the ones moving now into coastal Mississippi. Winds have been gusting 60 to 70 miles an hour. They're not nearly as strong as they were along the Mississippi coastline. Improving conditions. You will still see, even as the rainfall kind of abates, the ongoing flash flood warning. These are usually left with hours after the complex of storms have moved on, just for time for normal drainage and any pumping that is necessary to kind of give that time to catch up. Not that it is an ongoing or we're adding to the threat for the flooding, but it may still be an issue for several hours removed from when the rainfall finally does come to an end. And we are starting to see that rainfall come to an end across Metro New Orleans. So some positive news there, a little bit of a drying out around Kenner and parts of Metairie as well, and certainly a subsidence of much of the heavier rainfall across other parts of the metro area. Still an ongoing concern into the bayou and really coastal parishes now. Looks like really for St. Bernard, I would say the threat is done for you. You've got the heavier of the storms out over the Biloxi Marsh, and that will generally stay south of the Mississippi Sound as that complex kind of continues moving almost more due east. The storms over Mississippi, not quite as potent as the storms on the South Shore, but still an ongoing wind and heavy rainfall threat. Thankfully as well, we're not seeing any additional, as that line, that kind of bow echo really fell apart. It doesn't look like we're seeing any real rotation, although it does look like you might find a few of those little kind of almost hook signatures popping up here and there as that line moves out over the water. So I would venture to say we will likely see a number of water spouts as this leading edge is now moving out over the and south of the Mississippi Sound and eventually toward the Chandeleurs as we go throughout the next several hours. Again, just kind of reiterating what we're getting reports as of about 15 minutes ago. CLECO reporting over 10,500 people without power. We're getting reports of now 18,000 people without power in JP. We have been getting reports from a number of our staff in specific neighborhoods where we've gotten the power outages. That will, as just be honest, it's probably going to be an ongoing issue throughout the night and going into early on Friday morning until we can get all of that taken care of. As we'll go back to our computer model, and again, these have not been exact, so not precise. Notice where the model thinks the storms are right now is already way off. So just kind of getting a rough idea of our storm chances again tomorrow. They don't appear to be nearly as substantial during the day on Friday, and probably more of a late afternoon into the evening on Friday. Not an all-day affair, and it may not even go into the late night hours. Hopefully it doesn't. And then maybe kind of a repeat early on Saturday morning. May get some more storms. Oh, got a little too fast there. May get some more storms to begin the day on Saturday. Before we finally clear out, maybe before noon on Saturday, and then the rest of the day going into Sunday and next week will be much drier, but then we'll be contending with the heat, with high temperatures into the 90s and heat indices in the triple digits. But at least we'll have a period to dry out after our Monday rain today, more rain on Friday, and additional rain on Saturday. Much of the North Shore now kind of in the clear from these storms, and actually, as a matter of fact, even shortly, we'll be kind of in the clear in Hancock County in Mississippi. As far as our South Shore storms go, much of the river parishes, bayou parishes now kind of in that all clear. Certainly Metro New Orleans, as I mentioned, we're starting to see a lot of that heavier rainfall kind of weaken as well as those storms continue. For St. Bernard, they're already over the Biloxi Marsh. Still kind of an ongoing issue, I'd say, from Port Sulphur toward Galliano cutoff. You still got the stronger winds, frequent lightning, still a severe threat there. And it almost looks like this isn't making a great deal of progress south. May still affect Leeville, Grand Isle, but it's not making as much of a progress south as it is this entire complex is pulling off to the east. So may still make a little bit more of a southern progression, but all of these storms are moving off to the east. And again, there are some additional thunderstorms even to our west, though they don't appear. While we have some heavy rainfall, they're also not the same type of storms we have seen. So may still have some rumbles of thunder, may still have some of these kind of individual cells roll through even after 1 a.m. or so across parts of our area. But as far as well, it looks like maybe there is a severe thunderstorm warning within that one near Morgan City. Certainly not as widespread as the storms we have just had to contend with. So we'll watch these throughout the night tonight and see if those do pose an additional problem throughout the rest of the night tonight and into tomorrow. Again, our computer model kind of all over the place, so hard to even say exactly what those storms near Morgan City will do, as the models are just kind of all over the place and really not doing a great job of sampling the current state of the atmosphere, meaning the models don't really know where the storms are at this time, which then makes it very difficult to forecast out because the models aren't sure where the storms are at the moment. So we'll be watching these storms throughout the rest of the overnight period. Again, it does look like we're starting to see some settling in the metro area. Still an ongoing concern from cutoff toward Port Sulphur with the gusty winds. That will be something monitored through the next 15 minutes or so. Then you're really starting to get outside of our that thunderstorm we were just kind of highlighting around the Morgan City area. Now we have a severe thunderstorm warning, mainly for gusty winds, not as strong winds of about 60 miles an hour, and the potential for some small hail within that storm. That will be in effect for Assumption, Lafourche, St. James, and Terrebonne Parish until, let me see, that will be in effect until 1:15, so for the next 45 minutes or so. Wind gusts are more of what we're accustomed to, 60-mile-per-hour wind gust and some small hail. There is some heavy rainfall. There is quite a bit of lightning within these storms that are moving on. We'll probably see them hold together as they then continue further east into areas that have already been socked in with the storms. But we are not talking about the 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts that we have previously seen within these storms over the past hour and a half now that we've been on the air. As mentioned before, we will still see another risk of storms for tomorrow as well as on Saturday. We will also see additional flooding risks over the course of the next couple of days with some of the now ground saturated, some of the heavier rainfall rates that we could see in the coming days. We may still see some flooding issues as well as the stronger storms. Models as of right now have not indicated that the next couple of rounds of rain will be as robust as the storms we have seen late this evening and now early this morning. But certainly there is the potential of some embedded strong winds and small hail. That doesn't look to be a widespread issue, but something we'll be watching closely, as well as we always kind of have to mention, one or two isolated tornadoes, though that doesn't appear to be as much of a risk as the stronger winds and even some small hail, nor the risk of flooding, which also appears to be a little bit more of a risk within the storms in the coming days. So things are finally starting to settle down. As I say that, we've got this new little complex of storms coming out of Morgan City, although again, these are not nearly as bad as the earlier ones. If you kind of follow this trajectory along, this may take it more over the river parishes and perhaps even continue up toward the North Shore if it kind of maintains that trajectory. It does look like it may be on a path that would take it kind of clipping Thibodeau as opposed to moving due east. It may be moving more toward the northeast. It's something that will be watched, but as of right now, doesn't appear to be a major concern, as this is more of our typical severe thunderstorm with the strong gusty winds of 60 miles an hour. So the low end limits for a severe thunderstorm, as well as the possibility for some small hail. However, with the ground saturated, you also see a street flood advisory for some of these areas, as well as you're already in an area of a flood warning. So additional flooding is possible. Don't know if we're going to see any real huge accumulations within this individual cell as it comes on through, but I don't think we're going to really add to the rainfall totals, but we will certainly add, some. Let's kind of take a rough estimate of some of the rainfall totals here. When you look at what we've seen around the Morgan City area thus far, 5 to almost 6 inches of rainfall around Lafitte and Belle Chase. You've had 3 inches of rainfall. These are rough estimates based on radar, just over 1 inch of rainfall out toward the airport, which does seem interesting, maybe nearing 2 inches of rainfall across parts of the metro area. And then we'll kind of pan up to the North Shore. You find a few pockets of some heavier rainfall around the Picayune area that may have seen 3.5 or so inches of rainfall, maybe even a little band north of Covington that had maybe about 3 inches of rainfall, and south of Hammond at about 4 inches of rainfall. So we've had a good amount of rainfall, and this is just over the last 12 hours. So this is just from this evening's and this morning's rain. That does not take into account some of the rainfall that we have seen from what was occurring on Monday. Wanted to widen out just to show you there really isn't anything farther west. Yeah, we do have some storms that are kind of right along the coastline that, if they're able to hold together, may follow kind of a similar trajectory as the storms that are moving away from Morgan City right now, but certainly not the intensity nor the coverage area of the storms that we just dealt with this past hour and a half now. Things are finally starting to settle further into Mississippi. Looks like maybe Diamond Head, Bay St. Louis still on some of the heaviest of the rainfall. Out of Picayune now, so Pearl River County, you're kind of in the clear now, as well as more of our area as these storms are pushing farther south, now moving almost out. And you see, I said it wasn't making much southern progress. Well, new thunderstorm warning was issued for kind of basically the rest of our viewing area. Why not include all of southeast Louisiana under some type of severe thunderstorm warning? And we've seen kind of the last of our parishes now included. All of our coastal communities from Galliano, Leeville, Port Fourchon, south of Port Sulphur, Grand Isle, Triumph, down toward Pilottown. So now all of those areas under a severe thunderstorm warning. Again, the main threat from those strong winds and the possibility of some small hail. That will be ongoing until, apologize, I'm trying to use my fat fingers here to use this little keypad. That'll be ongoing until 1:45. I would venture to say it's not going to go quite that long. Also good news is that we are seeing more of the tornado watch canceled for various parishes as the threat again continues moving farther to the east. We're seeing it canceled for East Baton Rouge, East Feliciana, Point Coupé, West Baton Rouge, West Feliciana. So really all of our kind of northwestern Florida parishes being removed. I would venture to say we'll start seeing further of our viewing area parishes removed from that shortly as the threat continues to move off toward the east. Excuse me. Just check the computer here as okay, that new severe thunderstorm warning being issued for now kind of down toward the coast as conditions are improving. As far as that goes, that'll be kind of an ongoing threat moving toward the coast. We'll watch this new little complex of storms, which as you kind of watch it play out, it almost looks like the amount of lightning decreases. So this little cluster of thunderstorms, and I'm looking at the ones now approaching the Donaldsonville through Pierre Part and moving toward the river parishes, almost looks like it is somewhat weakening. Still a lot of lightning, but lightning counter looks like it has dropped. As a matter of fact, we can kind of take a look at what the lightning counter has done. Lightning amount as of right now on that cell is 503, and then if we go just a little bit earlier, yeah, it was over 1,000. Well, let me see, that includes that storm right there. So let me get a closer in look at this particular storm, 700. So we went from about 750 to now 500. So the amount of lightning within this cell has been decreasing. So that is an indication that the thunderstorm is also weakening. So some good news there, as that while has a thunderstorm, severe thunderstorm warning tagged to it, it does look like it is on a weakening. It is on the weakening side as we continue throughout the next, say, half hour or so. May still have some heavy rainfall with it and some lightning, but it does look like the storm itself is kind of weakening a bit, and that hopefully will be a trend which takes us right into the near 1 o'clock time frame as it does start to impact more of our viewing area. So we'll be watching these again throughout the rest of the evening and night, kind of looking back over some of our tower cameras here. Still some lightning strikes off in the distance, looking out toward downtown and elsewhere. This will be an improving night, but still some rumbles of thunder are not out of the realm of possibilities, as we have seen these storms kind of not backbuilding, but I'm looking for just kind of further development even behind the main cluster of storms. But these, though, as I mentioned, are trending weakening. So we may still see some thunderstorms here and there, not as though this was a well-defined line and a cold front that swept on through and then the rain and storms were done. This was kind of more of a messy system that is sometimes very, very difficult and frustrating to try and forecast accurately. Let's see. Severe thunderstorm warning being canceled for that portion of Orleans, Pearl River, and Hancock County, or Pearl River, excuse me, for Orleans, Pearl River, and St. Tammany. There's still an ongoing thunderstorm warning for Hancock and then into Harrison County in coastal Mississippi for just a little while longer. Let's see. NOFD. Engine 36, they had measured a wind gust of, this may be the NOFD, the training site in Michoud, that wind gust of 62 miles an hour. So we're just starting to kind of get we get the EM, the emergency management reports in, and then kind of they're verified by the National Weather Service, and then they issue kind of an official storm report, and they're verifying that those, sustained winds, or excuse me, wind gust of 62 miles an hour. So again, kind of recapping, we had a wind gust at Kenner of 84 miles an hour, 82 mile per hour wind gust at Lakefront, 62 mile an hour wind gust around the Michoud area. So these storms packed a punch as they moved on through. Thankfully, and again, a lot of the emergency management folks are out and about and kind of assessing damage. And thus far, nothing official into our chat group with the National Weather Service office. I would venture to say our folks in the newsroom, if they heard anything of note on the scanners, they would be reporting that to me. And thankfully, it doesn't seem as though we are hearing any of that as of right now. So hopefully that is not a widespread issue of damage. We still have the strong winds now approaching and approaching Port Sulphur. And down toward the Grand Isle area. Looks like maybe the strongest will just avoid Leeville and Port Fourchon. and more for all of southern Plaquemines Parish. St. Bernard, the bulk of this is out over the Biloxi Marsh and even south of the Mississippi Sound between the Chandeleur. So you're kind of in the clear now, and more of our area in the clear. Those thunderstorms we have been watching kind of coming out of St. Martin through Morgan City toward Thibodaux, they have definitely been on a weakening trend as that lightning counter, which had been, again, remember it was at about 500 just a few minutes ago. If I take a look at it now, it's down to 391. So this is the thunderstorm which is weakening. We'll see if once the storm kind of gets beyond Thibodaux, if the Weather Service kind of extends that severe thunderstorm warning. You see where it kind of ends in northern Lafourche. We will see if that is something that is extended further, but with the trend of the storm weakening, I would venture to say we probably will not see that extended unless that little kind of right in that little center, go to my zoom icon here, maybe aside from this little individual area right around Bayou Genevieve toward Labadyville, that still looks to be the strongest part of that thunderstorm. If that is able to maintain some strength, perhaps for that one we might see the severe thunderstorm warning narrowed a bit beyond Thibodaux, Chack Bay, maybe not even including those areas, but we will see. Again, the thunderstorm itself is starting to kind of wind down a bit. A little bit out of our viewing area, Weather Service is saying that now the Mobile radar, so better sampling of those storms in southern Mississippi, that the Mobile radar is showing an impressive surge of winds at likely or possibly above 70 miles an hour. Maybe they're gaining a little bit of steam moving right along the coastline, and that is all moving into southern Harrison County, so Gulfport, Lyman. You're starting to move a little bit more out of our viewing area. You're now into the Biloxi television market toward the Mobile market, so we will let those stations handle the storms that are moving out of Harrison and into Jackson County, Mississippi. We're going to focus on the storms that are still in our area, could be moving into our area. I say that with the storms that are out over right near Thibodaux, Morgan City, but that risk does look to be kind of waning as the amount of lightning within those storms have been decreasing. So that is a good trend we would like to see, as well as the storms that have been moving south of or in southern, now out of almost South Lafourche, and then more towards southern Jefferson, toward Grand Isle, and then also southern and central Plaquemines Parish. The St. Bernard storms, you're in the clear now. Those storms are now well to the east of even the Biloxi Marsh, so you're in the clear, as is most of our viewing area. With the exception of these little thunderstorms kind of coming in from the Pierre Part, Morgan City area, we are starting to finally see things settle down a bit more. So good news there. Notice even on the wide scale, we do still have a few little, at times, kind of embedded lighter showers, maybe in a few isolated thunderstorms, so lightning strikes. So I don't think we're going to be completely dry through the rest of the overnight period. And again, none of the systems that are on the way for Friday and even into early Saturday, none of these are very well-defined systems. They're all these kind of messy, sloppy systems, which makes it very difficult to forecast with a great deal of accuracy the timing and what the structure of the storms will look like to have a really good idea of the impacts, and then maybe what parts of our area could be more impacted than others. There was a time that it looked like this for today was going to stay more focused on the North Shore, and then all of a sudden we saw that line that really started to rip in East Texas and then western Louisiana, and it held together. Then it definitely looked like, no, this is going to be something for all of our viewing areas. So these systems, and I'd mentioned this in earlier newscasts, sometimes end up being kind of a day of type of an event. You don't know how it's really going to shape up until that complex of thunderstorms has already formed, and you kind of see what the progression has been, and hopefully kind of you have an idea of what it will be doing. And I really think that is what we're going to be dealing with for tomorrow and Saturday. Just know both days will have a chance for additional thunderstorms, at times some strong to severe, as well as some heavy downpours leading to some flooding. But the exact structure of those storms is still very much an unknown. We just kind of have a broad idea of when those storms will be rolling through, roughly tomorrow afternoon, or this afternoon, evening on Friday, and then again early on Saturday. Then after Saturday afternoon, evening, it looks like we'll be drying out and improving conditions for the rest of the night. It looks like the Weather Service is going to continue The severe thunderstorm warning for Assumption, Lafourche, and St. James. This remains in effect. This will remain in effect until 1:15 as the storms have, it's possible that we've seen gusting winds of about 60 miles per hour and quarter-size hail. Again, these are all estimates from radar, nothing that has been confirmed. Yeah, I would venture to say that the Weather Service was just going to leave this in place, not necessarily expire it. But as I'd mentioned, this has been a weakening trend just based on the amount of lightning within these thunderstorms. Always kind of a good measure to see if storms are strengthening or weakening. And when you see that lightning counter going from over 1,000 lightning strikes to now just more than 300 lightning strikes, it has been on a weakening trend, and hopefully that will be the case. However, notice that kind of the heaviest part of this cell is going to be moving right over Baton Rouge. So some of the strongest of the winds, Baton Rouge, Thibodaux, I just saw Baton Rouge in the corner of my eye. Thibodaux, that will be moving over you shortly. So northern Lafourche Parish, and again, if that is able to hold together, we might see that continue into parts of southern St. Charles, and then maybe even onto the more southern part or central part of Jefferson Parish. Again, if that thunderstorm is able to hold together. Those areas at the moment are not in the severe thunderstorm warning, just kind of trying to progress this out a little bit more into the future to see what this storm could potentially do in the near future. But that one, as I've said, is not nearly the impact that we've seen from the earlier storms that began at around 11 o'clock with that initial tornado warning, which prompted us to go on the air in the Convent area a little earlier this evening or late last night. As far as the strongest of the winds go in southeastern Louisiana, we still have those storms moving through the Port Fourchon area. That is where we still have that ongoing severe thunderstorm warning. Does look like maybe the bulk of that will avoid certainly Leeville and Port Fourchon, and a lot of it may avoid Grand Isle. Well, it looks like some of the, we're kind of on the extreme western or southern end of some of the strongest of the winds as far as Grand Isle is concerned. Looks like the bulk of the lightning is going to stay just to your north and east, and you might get clipped by some of the stronger winds, but I don't think it's going to be the 70 to 80 mile an hour wind gusts that we have seen associated with these storms through the course of the last couple of hours. And certainly improving conditions in Hancock County as those storms continue into now Harrison and eventually into Jackson County. And as mentioned, the radar out of Mobile is taking a little bit better sampling of those storms, and we are finding winds now of around 70 miles an hour right along the coast. So for folks that may be watching us in the Gulfport area moving toward Jackson County, expect not only the heavy rainfall but also those strong sustained or gusting winds of around 70 miles an hour. All clear though across the North Shore, all clear in Pearl River County, just about all of Hancock County, Metro New Orleans, you're in the all clear. We are going to watch these storms as they move down further into central and southern Plaquemines Parish. Again, the main threat, the strong gusting winds of 70 to even 80 miles an hour. We do still have some thunderstorms in the river parishes toward Donaldsonville and a little bit more south, now moving into the bayou parishes into Thibodaux, but those, as I mentioned, not nearly as strong as the storms were from earlier in the day. Let's see, we got a report, tree reported across I-59 near Pearl River, so that is in St. Tammany Parish. A tree reported down across I-59 in St. Tammany in Pearl River, so that is coming in from the fire department there. So just again, one of several storm reports that we are getting. Thankfully, it's thus far, knock on wood, don't want to jinx it. As I'd mentioned, it's kind of the usual suspects of damage reports that we have gotten so far. But with the winds gusting at 84 miles an hour at Kenner, 81 miles an hour earlier at Lakefront Airport, I would venture to say we will see more damage reports as we go throughout the now early morning hours of our Friday, and then even after the daylight hours as we can start assessing some of the damage of what we've experienced from these storms late this evening and now going into the early morning hours. But as folks are maybe just trying to now settle down and go off to bed, most of us can start to now breathe that sigh of relief. We do still, yes, have that thunderstorm moving toward Thibodaux. And for the folks there, you've got the rumbles of thunder, some gusty winds, but not the winds that we had earlier this evening with those 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts. These are more of our normal severe thunderstorms. I hate to even say normal because they can still do some damage, but more of the normal, what we typically see, the near 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and smaller hail. That looks to be what is moving toward the Thibodeau area. That storm has been weakening just based on the amount of lightning associated, although you do kind of see a little piece of it is kind of broken off and moving toward the Gonzales area, so we may still see some of those thunderstorms, although that doesn't have nearly the potency of the storm that is moving toward the Thibodeau area. Some fairly intense rainfall there over Labadyville, moving toward Chack Bay, the Minerva Plantation, and Thibodeau. If that is able to hold together, again, that would be more than toward Raceland, maybe Des Allemands and Boutte, if it is able to hold its own through the rest of the night. We have some, Colleen Seeley's actually messaging me, we have restrictions on the causeway. So for folks that may be out and about, it does look like we have full restrictions on the bridge in effect. No word yet on when that will be lifted. I would hope to say, I'd venture to say, okay, and now she's just texting me, the causeway, okay, the causeway is open, but restrictions are in effect. I'm sorry, kind of confusing information at first. Again, we're reporting sometimes the raw information that is initially coming into us. Sometimes it hasn't been filtered through our various checks and balances, but as the information comes in, trying to report it out to you. So we have restrictions on the causeway, but it is open. And that would hopefully be the case as, again, the worst of the storms have since moved on from the causeway and from Metro New Orleans and on the North Shore into St. Tammany Parish. As far as that storm in Thibodeau, again, there is no, and I'll switch over here and look, there is no rotation within the storm, so nothing certainly like that. You kind of got little pockets of maybe broad rotation here and there, but nothing that is well organized. So there really isn't a threat of a tornado with this one as of right now. We will watch that certainly, but nothing like that, and certainly nothing like the storms we had earlier around the Convent and the Convent area from possibly confirmed tornado when we had debris signatures being detected, and that was just to the south of where this thunderstorm is right now. So the thunderstorm threat that is still ongoing, Labadyville moving toward Chack Bay and Thibodeau, and then of course the storms that are now moving through Port Sulphur and really across now more from Port Sulphur down through Pilot Town and Southwest Pass. These will be the kind of worst of the storms that are still ongoing in our viewing area, and that should be wrapping up rather shortly. So conditions there are improving dramatically. We still have the flash flood warning for the metro area due to the rains we've already seen. Just give it time for just natural drainage and any kind of pumping that needs to take place, as well as the flash flood warning that is in place for much of the North Shore. That does not include the river flooding that we have had. That is separate. This is flash flooding from our rainfall, but I would venture to say we will start to see new forecasts on a lot of those rivers, even higher from the rainfall that we have seen thus far, and flash flood warnings which are ongoing along the Mississippi coast. Even as the heavy rainfall moving on, it's just going to take some time for all of that water to drain away. Port Sulphur down toward Lower Plaquemines are threat at the moment, as well as a lower end threat for an ongoing severe thunderstorm that is moving toward the Thibodeau area, Chack Bay through Labadyville. But as mentioned, this was a storm that at one time had over 1,000 lightning strikes, and now we're down to 219. So this is a weakening thunderstorm, and it does look like even there's more intense rains that were moving toward Thibodeau are also weakening. So all improving conditions as we are closing in on the 1 a.m. time frame. It does look like we will have far more improved weather through the rest of the overnight period and going into early tomorrow morning. Again, we will likely see another round at some point in the late afternoon, evening on Friday, and again on Saturday. Both of those systems moving through are going to be some of these kind of sloppy, unorganized systems that become a little bit more difficult to forecast precise timing and precise impacts with regards to how these systems are going to be taking shape. Exactly which part of our area may see some of the more direct impacts from these storms tomorrow and Saturday. It's just a little bit more difficult with forecasting these type of systems because they are so much more unorganized, but just know rough timing tomorrow or later this afternoon, evening, and then again maybe into the early morning hours of our Saturday to start our Saturday before we see improving weather throughout the rest of the evening and night. Still have a few thunderstorms here and there off to our west. Again, kind of what had been part of an overall cluster. We saw one little piece kind of break off, move toward the Donaldsonville, Gonzales area, and then the other that is moving toward Thibodaux right now. That one has been on a weakening trend. So I would venture to say with that thunderstorm warning continuing until 1:15, I would venture to say either the Weather Service may just leave that up or maybe allow that to expire early. It's going to be already outside of that warned area before 1:15. So I would venture to say once it is out of that warned area, don't believe we will see another severe thunderstorm warning for that, maybe for Des Allemands, Raceland, as it has been on a weakening trend, and looks like that is a trend which has continued now over the past hour. So don't see that firing back up as it continues to the east. So that one thunderstorm that we're still watching, moving toward, say, maybe the northern end, Gramercy, Laplace, southern end of it, more of the Des Allemands, Raceland area, if it does hold together. Maybe we get some of that rain in Luling and further into St. Charles Parish, and then maybe parts of into the Kenner, into Jefferson Parish. As mentioned before, this is not going to be just a completely dry rest of the early morning hours, but certainly the further risk of severe storms, far weaker and more limited than they were. I'm sorry, what was that, Madeline? Okay, I appreciate it. Peyton Malone has come in early to kind of help us out here as we've been watching these storms. Peyton, is there anything else you've been seeing with the trend of the storms and what we're looking forward to for the next couple of hours?
Yeah, give you a little break, Chris. You've been doing a good job. The wind woke me up, rushed in here. I wanted to give you an update on the power outages and some of our numbers because they are quite impressive. We have a lot of power outages. In Jefferson Parish specifically, we're looking at our map here. You can see our two spots over in Kenner and parts of Metairie. We have over reported 30,000 without power. This is those reported wind gusts were over 84 miles per hour at the airport. And then at the Lakefront Airport, we gusted to 82 miles per hour. Now, Colleen, let's jump up to the North Shore really quickly. And you can see the power outages up in Tangipahoa Parish. And you said we have over reported, I believe, 20,000 or so up in Tangi. So we do have some pretty significant power outages all across the region. Of course, there's many other communities mixed in the mix here between the North Shore and the South Shore, but those are our two main spots, especially out in Kenner. So if you are watching us right now, let's say on your cell phone or on your app or on Facebook Live, I know we're streaming there, you're going to probably be without power. We don't have any estimates on anything like that. So that's what we're watching at this hour. But as Chris has been talking about, that first batch of big thunderstorms, it has moved into Mississippi now, but we are watching that back end side, we'll call it, moving up through parts of the Bayou and River parishes. And we're talking about, Chris, that this one doesn't look nearly as bad, but it is producing likely at least some stronger wind gusts. It has a tremendous amount of lightning, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some hail in this as well, about to move into the Thibodaux, Chack Bay, maybe Schriever Gray area, where you're seeing some of those pink colors mixing in there right now. So that severe thunderstorm warning is going to continue. This is going to stay north of Houma, but Thibodaux, Chack Bay, you've got that strong thunderstorm moving in as we speak. And you can see that severe thunderstorm warning. It's going to go until 1:15. So another 15 minutes. Could have quarter-size hail, winds up to 60 miles per hour. And Chris, I was just looking at the long-range data, and you know, this is just round one of many rounds. As you were talking about, it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly where the worst of this stuff is going to set up over the next couple of days. We've got more storms coming in later this morning. We've got more storms this afternoon and evening, and even some storms into parts of Saturday. So it's hard to say exactly what it look like, what we've got going on out there right now. So that's what we'll be following as we go through the next, today and going into parts of tomorrow. So new severe thunderstorm warning. This is coming just outside of our viewing area. It's really just a continuation of that severe line that's moving into parts of Jackson County, Mississippi excuse me, this morning. So if you are settling in, hopefully you head back to bed if you were woken up by those strong winds. If you missed it, we gusted to 84 at the New Orleans airport. We gusted to 82 at the Lakefront airport. This did lead to quite a bit of power outages across the area. We're now reporting over 30,000 in Jefferson Parish, but things have finally really calmed down across a big part of our immediate metro. This is a live view from the city of New Orleans looking towards the city, and this is what it looks like back towards the West Bank and towards Metairie and Gretna, Metairie and Kenner. I have had a couple reports from viewers. Someone said they have a tree on their car in the River Ridge area. So we'll try to get more updates on more widespread damage or what damage we do have reported coming in across parts of the area. Just getting more Calico outages. This is going to be for, that's St. Tammany, right?
Yes.
St. Tammany, Calico,
yes,
and parts of Washington Parish. Over 32,000 power out there. So what's that tally? We've got over 30 in the metro, 20 up in Tangi, over 30 in St. Tammany. We're talking about
50,000
over 50,000 or nearly 70,000.
Yeah.
So 70,000 without power across the area here across southeast Louisiana as these storms, boy, did they come in, and they came in fast. So that's what we're watching. I do want to give you a quick update on the severe thunderstorm warning that continues. And as we go look down into the bayou parishes, and this severe thunderstorm warning is going to go for another 10 minutes or so. This includes Thibodaux and Chack Bay. This severe thunderstorm could produce a quarter-size hail and maybe up to 60-mile-per-hour wind gust. That's right over Thibodaux and Chack Bay and down towards Schriever. Now, this is going to stay north of Houma and Gray. So the worst of this one's in Chack Bay, Thibodaux, and Schriever at the moment. I don't think this one is producing the 80-mile-an-hour winds, but it certainly could produce 60 to maybe over 65-mile-per-hour wind gust as this blows on in. We could check in on our velocity here, and the way this is situated, it's not going to show the velocity very well, but there could be gusty winds in this for sure. So if you're continuing to watch us in the upper Lafourche area, that's where the worst of this is. Also getting into parts of Vacherie and Lutcher, so you're getting into St. James and extreme western portions of St. John Parish at this hour. So that's the only storm that's really impacting our viewing area at the moment. That's the big line of storms that moved through about an hour to 2 hours ago. We had the reports of the confirmed tornado, or at least I believe it was radar indicated, out in St. James Parish.
Well, we had debris signature.
Debris signature, yeah. So that was earlier this morning. Same line of storms. That's now moved off towards South Mississippi and heading towards Mobile. So we're going to get a brief break, but we've got more storms firing up behind this. Lafayette, back to Baton Rouge, and back into Lafourche Parish. And you know, this isn't it. It looks like we've got more storms coming in later on today. I'll show you a quick view of what we could see as we go into the Friday afternoon time frame. You could see staying relatively quiet early on, but then more storms this evening and into tonight. Potential for gusty winds, strong damaging winds, isolated tornadoes not out of the question, and that continues into parts of Saturday morning. So this is going to be a multi-round event, as we call it, meaning it's not going to be one and done. This is going to last for several rounds. And that's just what we get this time of year with sometimes these overnight thunderstorms. So our area, we got a lot of watches and warning at this hour. I could show you the flash flood warning. This is going to continue for a large part of the area, although the flooding on my drive-in, at least in the city, I did not have any big problems here from coming in from the lakefront area back down towards where we are here in the city. In the French Quarter. That's not to say there aren't areas of flooding. I did notice there was quite a bit of debris that was in parts of the roadway blocking some drains, so that's got us clogged up a little bit here, but things were looking manageable with regard to flooding as I was coming in about 30 minutes or so ago. So it dumped a quick couple of inches of rain, but it was moving, that we didn't have that training effect, and now we've got a few isolated storms. You could see the scope on how different these thunderstorms look compared to this big old mess that came through and produced the 80-plus-mile-an-hour winds. These are much smaller, and a lot of times what happens here is you get your initial line, and that helps work up the atmosphere. It uses up some of that energy, so these storms not going to be as strong, but they are still producing, I think, some maybe nickel to quarter-size hail and an occasional wind gust, but I don't see them being nearly as strong as this first line that blew through within the past couple of hours or so. So yes, some thunderstorms out here, Lafayette, Thibodaux, up towards St. James Parish. These are not expected to be nearly as strong, but you probably are waking up this morning here in Thibodaux with a lot of lightning and thunder, that's for sure. This thing's producing a tremendous amount of lightning off to the west. We've still got a lot of cloud-to-cloud lightning across the metro area and across the North Shore. As this rain leaves, you're still getting some rain or some lightning striking across the area. So that's what we've got going on with our current radar situation. Just again, if you are just joining us, it's 1 o'clock here. Hopefully you are settling down. I imagine a lot of you are trying to get back to bed here as we get ready for our Friday. Lots of power outages reported. We don't have any estimates, I don't believe, on what exactly the damage was, what was knocked out, but we are looking at, I want to show you the map here for our power outages. This is a CLECO map specifically. Remember, we have our two providers across the area. So this is in St. Tammany Parish. Colleen's still reporting over 30,000 in St. Tammany this morning without power. We have reported over 30,000 in Jefferson Parish as well. I don't know if we can get the Entergy map up as well, but from St. Tammany to Jefferson Parish, that's a total of about 60,000 without power. And then we also have an estimated about 20,000 without power up in Tangipahoa Parish, specifically the Hammond area. Colin, if we can zoom in there, you can see parts of Hammond, a big part of town there, especially on the, if you live east of I-55 there, that's where we've got a lot of the power outages in the Hammond area extending down to the east of Ponchatoula. Now in Jefferson Parish, if we can go down to Jefferson Parish very quickly, we have a tremendous amount of power outages down here. You can see all that red there. I mean, a large part. There's not many areas in Metairie that do have power at this hour. You can see surrounding the airport, up through West Esplanade there, nearly all the way to the lakefront. The power outages are a bit more sporadic in Metairie, but we do have some power outages near the Clearview area and West Esplanade. There's power outages on the West Bank going, lots of down here into parts of, what is that? Estelle, and getting a little further down to the south there of Marrero. We've also got some back down towards Terrytown, it looks like. And then if you go out in New Orleans East, Colleen, we have power outages there too. Up into New Orleans East, yeah, a lot of red. And I just noticed the English Turn. Looks like the entire English Turn is without power at this hour. Yeah, so we got a mess this morning. At least it's Friday, I guess. We're not starting off the work week this way. So this is what we've got at this hour. The storms winding down, at least for the majority of our area. We don't have any major thunderstorms coming through the immediate metro right now. The only severe thunderstorm warning we continue to track in our viewing area is going to be into the Thibodaux and Chack Bay going into the Lutcher-Vacherie area. This severe thunderstorm warning is going to go until 1 o'clock here, and they've trimmed it back quite a bit. This is not going to be on the same level as what we just saw blow through the area. This one's going to be much more isolated. I don't think it's going to produce massive hail, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some, you can see maybe pea to dime to perhaps up to nickel size that's moving on the west side of the on the Thibodaux side of town and just north of LA1 right now. So that's where there's a little hell core this morning. Looking at the velocity and our winds, we are seeing probably some gusty winds, but I have not had any confirmed reports of the significant winds here in the Thibodaux area. So still some gusty winds, probably lots of lightning and thunder, but I'm optimistic that this first line really worked over the atmosphere, and that's going to help knock down some of these storms here over the next, well, at least through the next couple of hours. There are some high resolution models showing we've got more storm potential in the metro area later this morning. So perhaps for that morning drive, if you do have to get up in the next several hours by 4, 5, 6 o'clock, we'll see if that materializes. But some do report that some showing that we do have the chance for some more thunderstorms this morning, and then more as we head into this afternoon as well. So that's what we're watching here. A lot of the severe thunderstorm warnings have wrapped up for our area. The flash flood warnings are ongoing, but as I mentioned, I didn't have any massive flooding problems on my drive in. It was those typical spots where you had ponding on roads and there was a lot of debris. I will say, if you are getting on the roads this morning, be extra careful. When we have 80-mile-an-hour winds, those oak trees love to shed, and there could easily be some fairly decent branches that have fallen off those in our roadways. I know I'll run into sometimes if you're around City Park, those things really get going. on. So be aware of that this morning, that you probably need to slow down and make sure you're driving extra cautious, or being extra cautious, as there could be some debris in the roads from these strong winds that blew through overnight. So it is 1:08 here. We look a lot quieter now than we did. We'll toss it back to regular programming for a little bit, and we'll break back in if we have any updates. Of course, you can join us right here. We'll have live coverage all morning long of the power outages. That starts 4:30 right here on Channel 4 with the whole morning team, and we'll keep you updated there. We're going to send you back to programming, though.
This has been a severe weather alert from WWL Weather, sponsored by Egan Insurance Agency.
Or advertisers mentioned in this program, and disclaims any liability for any representations, availability, conditions, and/or quality.
The following is a paid presentation made possible by the support of the friends and partners of Inspiration Ministries.
You have found